Well, I think what they've done is one of the most courageous and fearless things I've seen. I think I think to walk away from all of that, the public grief that we know about, but to all of that family pain. Well, we should think of the Queen as a great-grandmother, and we should think of Prince Charles as a dad. I mean, they will all be suffering from this hugely. And Harry has chosen to walk away from all of that to protect his wife and his children. And I think that you've got the analysis of the media totally right, that the angriest media is from the angriest people, or the people feeding Mr. and Mrs. Angry. But I think all of us need to look at ourselves and think of this as a family that's been blowing itself apart, probably no more seriously than many families are going through or have gone through and haven't been able to walk away. But we're thinking of these as, if we think of them as human beings, as sons and daughters and sisters-in-laws and mother-in-laws and great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers, our hearts should be bleeding for these two.
You're not in any way suggesting they should be bleeding more for these two than for people, stuck in a dinghy in the middle of the English Channel or living in Syria at the time, or even people using food banks. But it's not either or, is it? This is one of the great mysteries of our era.
It's not either or. And we are showing ourselves more and more to be a nation with less and less compassion less and less tolerance of different people, different choices. I mean, that was what was going on in the family. I mean, without knowing any of the detail or any of the personalities involved, it was differences of opinion, it's differences of definition of duty, it's differences of definition of loyalty. And for Meghan, what she was being asked to become was completely impossible for her to be who she really was.
It was "Can you protect us?" as well that resonated with me, or we just wanted some help. We wanted some protection.
Can you help me? No.
Because what we're being exposed to is different from what everybody else has been exposed to. So the fact that we're getting less help and support is the argument they made. It actually makes sense of everything. But if you don't understand, then you are much more easily manipulated into a kind of unfocused anger, aren't you, or into indignation?
And we see this with every rabbit hole and conspiracy theory going. The anti-vaxxers, the anti-maskers, the Bill Gates theorists. I mean, the sensible, intelligent people get hooked up in this because they're only exposed to their own bubble and they're terrified of being wrong.
I guess we are all terrified of being wrong at some stage in our life, but what I saw...
Well, some of us less than others.
Well, no, some of us have written a book about it, Adrian, but no one likes a self-publicist.
And I've read them both. I think that this ability to be vulnerable and wrong and human is what they've shown us in that interview. I believed every word of it. I don't believe they were mincing their words. They did announce at the beginning of the interview that they weren't being paid for it.
They want to get their version of events on the record. And
they want to get their version of events on the record to appeal to the reasonable, sensible, rational, nuanced thinkers in society, which are fewer and fewer and fewer.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have been at the centre of public scrutiny for years, and their decision to step back from royal duties was met with intense backlash. However, there are still voices of reason who recognise the immense pressure the couple has been under. A recent caller on LBC, speaking with James O'Brien, passionately argued that our hearts should be bleeding for Harry and Meghan. This discussion sheds light on the importance of empathy and compassion, which have often been lacking in the way they've been treated. Prince Harry, a man who dedicated years of his life to service, both in the military and as a working royal, made a difficult yet necessary choice for his mental well-being and that of his family. Meghan Markle, a woman who married into an institution that failed to protect her from relentless attacks, has been vilified simply for existing, and yet instead of support, they have been met with hostility. The LBC caller pointed out that anyone with a sense of humanity should feel for Harry and Meghan, considering the immense sacrifices and struggles they have endured. What's striking is how selective people's outrage can be. Many argue that Prince Harry betrayed his family, but fail to acknowledge that his family, an institution built on tradition and duty, offered him little protection when he needed it the most. The expectations placed on Harry were rigid, with no room for individuality. personal happiness, or even the basic right to protect his wife and children. How could anyone fault him for stepping away from a system that was clearly failing him? This discussion on LBC wasn't just about Harry and Meghan, it was about something much bigger, our collective ability to show compassion. The caller emphasized that, whether one likes them or not, it is undeniable that they have been subjected to a level of scrutiny that no person should have to endure. From the racist attacks on Meghan to the dismissive attitude toward Harry's trauma after losing his mother, it is clear that their struggles are real, and yet, instead of sympathy, they are often met with cynicism and cruelty. We live in a world where people are quick to judge but slow to understand. The caller's words remind us that behind the headlines there are human beings with real emotions, struggles and pain. Harry and Meghan didn't make their decision lightly. They weighed the consequences, knowing full well the backlash they would face. And still, they chose peace, happiness and safety for their family over tradition and duty. This brings us to a crucial question. Why is it so difficult for people to extend compassion to them? Why do some believe that they should have stayed in a toxic situation simply to uphold an image? If we strip away the titles, the media narratives and the royal protocols, we are left with a couple who simply wanted a better life for themselves and their children. James O'Brien has long been a voice of reason in these discussions, and this caller echoed an important sentiment: humanity should come first. No matter one's opinion on the royal family, the treatment of Harry and Meghan should concern us all. The way they have been vilified, simply for prioritising their well-being, sets a dangerous precedent. It sends a message that those who break away from harmful traditions deserve to be punished. Instead of perpetuating negativity, perhaps it's time for a shift in perspective. What if we celebrated the fact that Prince Harry found the courage to put his family first? What if we acknowledged the strength it took for Meghan to continue standing tall despite relentless attacks? What if, instead of criticising their choices, we asked ourselves how we would feel if we were in their shoes? Compassion and empathy are what separate us from becoming completely desensitized to the struggles of others. The LBC caller was right. Our hearts should be bleeding for Harry and Meghan, not because they are royals, not because they are celebrities, but because they are human beings who have been through immense hardship and are still standing strong. And that alone is something worth acknowledging. What are your thoughts? Let's continue the discussion in the comments below. And if you believe in standing up for fairness, empathy and truth, don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates and insights on Harry and Meghan.